They framed me. They blamed me. They said I'm the one who killed Tupac. 30 years. I never said anything different. Because I know the truth.
Say the walls of a prison hear everything. Confessions, conspiracies, and cries that never make it to the outside. Tonight, you're hearing the whispers that set the internet on fire. According to new chatter and resurfaced claims, Suge Knight allegedly broke years of silence about the night Tupac was shot. Then, before a supposed attack behind bars, hinted at a version of events that flips the story we've all been told. We're not saying any of this is proven. We're reacting to what's being reported, what's being alleged, and what fans are arguing about right now. They're calling it a final message, a last attempt to clear his name, to shift the blame, to point at hidden hands and million-dollar motives. Emotions ran high the moment these whispers hit timelines. Supporters say it sounds like overdue truth. Critics call it jailhouse fantasy. And the family is left caught in the crossfire of memory and myth. Was it loyalty or betrayal? Mercy or manipulation? Tonight, we follow the claims, the contradictions, and the questions nobody wants to answer. Because if even a sliver of this is real, the Vegas story you thought you knew might be standing on sand. Buckle up. This is where the drama begins. The story begins in a place where silence was supposed to protect everything. Inside the gray walls of a California prison where Suge Knight, once feared and worshipped in equal measure, had spent years pretending the past was buried. But now, something had changed. The man who once ruled death row records with an iron fist was frail, slower, and surrounded by whispers that his health had turned for the worse. Guards said he talked to himself at night, repeating a name over and over, Tupac. Inmates claimed they heard him muttering, saying things like, "They framed me. They blamed me." Nobody paid attention until the day before the alleged attack, when one inmate swore he heard Suge say, "I'm done protecting ghosts." That was the same day word leaked that a journalist from an independent magazine had managed to get a call through. Suge had agreed to speak. It wasn't a press conference or a written statement. It was an emotional, rambling conversation where he talked about loyalty, faith, and betrayal in a way that made even the guard on duty lean in. He started slow, saying he had made peace with God, but not with the lies that people had built around him. Then his tone shifted. His voice cracked. The way it does when someone's heart breaks mid-sentence. "They want the world to think I killed my brother," he said. "But God knows I didn't. Pac knows I didn't." The journalist asked him why he stayed quiet for so long. Suge chuckled, low and tired. "Because they wanted me dead in spirit before they killed me in flesh. You stay alive in this world by keeping secrets." The room fell silent. Outside, rain slammed against the window as if to drown his words. But even the guards couldn't shake what came next. Suge began describing the night of September 7th, 1996, not like a story he'd rehearsed, but like a nightmare replaying itself after years of haunting. He said the air in Vegas that night felt heavy, electric. Tupac was laughing in the back seat of the car, talking about a party, about plans, about leaving death row soon. He had that look, Suge said, like he was done with the street life, but the street wasn't done with him. They had just left the MGM Grand, where a fight had broken out, caught on tape, blasted everywhere. Suge claimed that moment sealed their fate. "Somebody made a call right then. I could feel it." When the white Cadillac pulled up beside them, Suge said he thought it was just fans shouting Pac's name. Then came the flashes. The noise was deafening, glass shattering, Pac gasping for air, chaos spilling across the Vegas Strip. Suge's voice shook when he described pulling Pac down, trying to cover him. Blood everywhere. He said he could still smell the gunpowder every night before sleep. "It wasn't random," he whispered. "That wasn't no gang payback. That was business." He paused, breathing heavily into the receiver. The journalist asked what he meant by business. Suge didn't answer right away. He muttered something about contracts and bounties, and then his tone hardened. "Pac wasn't supposed to die that night," he said. "I was." The room fell silent again. The journalist didn't interrupt. Suge continued. saying he believed the hit had been set up from inside his own circle. "You think betrayal comes from enemies?" He said no, it comes from the ones sitting right next to you. He spoke of men he once trusted, security, promoters, even artists, whom he claimed had turned against him for money. He hinted that certain people had already been paid before the bullets flew. "They gave them half up front," he murmured. "The rest was supposed to come after I was gone." When asked who they were, Suge only laughed again, a laugh so hollow it barely sounded human. "You already know," he said. "They wear suits, not colors." The journalist pressed further, asking if he was referring to industry figures, maybe even rival executives. Suge didn't confirm, but his silence said more than words ever could. What he did reveal next shocked everyone who heard the tape later. He said that after the shooting, when he and Tupac reached the hospital, the atmosphere changed from panic to something eerie. "They had him hooked up to machines, and I remember him trying to talk," Suge said. "He was scared, not of dying, but of going back inside. He told me, 'Suge, I can't do that again.'" According to him, Tupac begged not to be sent back to prison if he survived. Suge claimed he tried to calm him down, told him they'd get through it like they always did. But Tupac just stared at the ceiling, his voice weak. "You don't understand," he whispered. "They don't want me alive." Suge's words trembled as he described the moment Tupac allegedly asked him to end it, to pull the plug, to make sure he never saw a cell again. "He said God would understand if it came from me," Suge recalled. "But I couldn't. I loved him too much." The journalist, stunned, asked if Tupac really said that. Suge insisted he did. He said a nurse overheard part of the conversation and tried to intervene. But Pac just smiled and told her he wanted a drink. "Bring me a Hennessy," he joked, trying to sound like his old self. "And 2 blunts." The nurse refused, thinking he was delirious, but Suge said Pac laughed through the pain. "That was him," Suge whispered. "Even when dying, he had to joke." The story didn't stop there. Suge described how the hospital room slowly turned into a battlefield of emotions. Afeni Shakur arrived, exhausted but fierce. She told everyone to clear the room except the doctors. Suge said he stood outside, pacing, hearing muffled voices. Minutes later, alarms went off. He rushed in to see doctors trying to revive Pac. Afeni shouted something. He couldn't recall the exact words, but they burned into him like fire. "Don't do that again," she told them. "Let my baby rest." Suge swore her voice was calm but final. To him, it sounded like a mother's heartbreak mixed with mercy. "I think she saw something we didn't," he said quietly. She knew he was tired. But as powerful as that sounded, others who later heard the story weren't so sure. Critics said Suge was twisting facts to absolve himself, to turn tragedy into redemption. Medical experts questioned how much of it could even be true given Pac's condition. Still, the emotions in Suge's voice were undeniable. As he continued talking, he described how Afeni ordered that her son's body be cremated within a day. "No funeral, no cameras, nothing," Suge said. "Just ashes and silence." He claimed he paid $1 million for the cremation, and that some of Pac's closest friends later performed a ritual, rolling his ashes into a blunt and smoking them as a farewell. "I couldn't do it," Suge said softly. "I was still on probation." When the journalist asked him why he was choosing to reveal all this now, Suge's tone grew heavy again. "Because I might not wake up tomorrow," he said. "They already came for me once. They'll try again." He talked about hearing threats from inside, about people being paid to silence him. "If I die in here," he said, "just know it wasn't natural." Outside the prison, the audio spread like wildfire. Fans were split down the middle. Some said Suge was finally clearing his conscience. Others said he was spinning another myth to rewrite his legacy. But one thing was certain. The silence around Tupac's death had cracked open once again. And somewhere in the middle of all those voices, the line between truth and storytelling blurred completely. The following day, the world was already losing its mind over Suge Knight's alleged confession. The audio snippets leaked online, spreading across blogs, podcasts, and hip-hop news pages faster than anyone could contain them. Hashtags like Knowing Suge's Last Words and Ishai's Pack Truth started trending overnight. People who had once dismissed Suge as a bitter old man suddenly wanted to hear every word he said. The journalist who'd conducted the call claimed she had hours of material still unreleased, and she hinted that there was more shocking stuff coming soon. Meanwhile, inside the prison, chaos brewed. According to other inmates, Suge was isolated after the interview went public. Some said guards were told to keep a closer watch. Others whispered that the warden had received outside pressure to stop further communication. One prisoner who shared the cell block claimed he heard an argument between Suge and an unknown visitor a day before the alleged attack. He said the man told Suge to keep his mouth shut, to remember who paid his bills once upon a time. Suge reportedly laughed and replied, "You can't silence the truth when it's already out." That line became an anthem on social media. Fans turned it into a meme, a quote printed on hoodies, captions under pictures of Tupac, as if Suge's words had reignited the entire legend. Commentators on YouTube debated whether this was redemption or manipulation. One former producer who had worked with Death Row told a podcast host that Suge had been obsessed with rewriting history. "He wants people to see him as a fallen soldier, not the villain," he said. "He's playing with emotion now because he knows time's running out." Still, the details Suge described couldn't be ignored. He had named people, hinted at organizations, even suggested that the shooting was a contract hit disguised as gang warfare. His mention of $1 million bounty reignited one of the most infamous rumors in hip-hop history, that someone high up in the industry had paid for Tupac and Suge to be taken out the same night. On one side, you had conspiracy theorists breaking down old interviews, police reports, and even photos, claiming they now fit the puzzle. On the other, skeptics pointing out that Suge offered no proof, no documents, no witnesses. "It's just words," one journalist wrote. "But words can light fires," and they did. Within days, talk shows picked it up. A late-night host joked that even Tupac's hologram was probably side-eyeing Suge Knight right now. But then something strange happened. New leaks surfaced. Fragments of recorded conversations allegedly between Suge and a former associate named Terrence T-Bone Lewis, who had worked security for Death Row back in the day. In one clip, a voice that sounded eerily like Suge's said, "I told you back then, they wanted me gone." Puff wasn't just trying to win in music. He wanted the whole board cleared. That line sent shockwaves through the community. Once again, fans divided. Some believed this was the final piece connecting the alleged bounty rumor to the East-West feud. Others thought it was just old drama being recycled for clicks. Legal analysts jumped in too, reminding everyone that these were just claims, and no court had ever verified such stories. But the damage, or the spectacle, was already done. Every entertainment site, every hip-hop forum, every barbershop conversation circled back to one question. Was Suge Knight finally telling the truth, or was he staging his last performance? Suge himself, still behind bars, gave no more statements, but prison insiders claimed he looked different. Calm, almost relieved. One inmate who passed him in the yard said he was humming an old Tupac verse under his breath. "It's like he knew something we didn't," the man said later. And then came the reports of the attack. Official statements were vague, saying only that an altercation had occurred in Suge's unit and that he'd been hospitalized with serious injuries. But online, the story blew up instantly. Unnamed sources claimed it wasn't just a fight. It was an assassination attempt. People began connecting dots that might not even exist. The leaked interview, the threats, the silence. "They came for him right after he spoke," one viral tweet read. If that's not suspicious, what is? Outside the prison walls, the reaction was explosive. Fans flooded comment sections demanding investigations, while others accused the media of glorifying a man with a history of violence. Documentaries started popping up overnight. Independent filmmakers dissected every timeline, every statement, replaying old footage of Tupac and Suge like detectives chasing ghosts. Among those who weighed in was a woman claiming to be a former nurse from the Las Vegas hospital where Tupac had been treated. She posted anonymously, saying she remembered family tensions and heated moments, but refused to confirm anything about Afeni Shakur's alleged words. "People forget he was just a son to her," she wrote, "not a symbol. A mother makes impossible choices." Her message went viral, reigniting debate over whether Suge's version of that hospital night was real or just emotional theater. Meanwhile, Kefedi's lawyers were quick to respond. They released a statement dismissing Suge's words as delusions from a man seeking relevance. They insisted that Kefe's account, which pointed to Orlando Anderson as the shooter, was consistent and had been supported by witness cooperation. Still, many online pointed out that both stories shared one chilling similarity: the idea of money being exchanged before the shots. And yet, Suge's tale carried something no one else's had before: emotion. When he spoke about Tupac, he wasn't just retelling history. He was mourning a brother, a friend, a piece of himself. "People think we were just business," he said in the leaked audio, "but Pac was my family. When he died, a part of me went with him. I kept fighting, but I was already gone." Fans clung to that line. It painted Suge not as a monster, but as a man haunted by regret. The more people listened, the more they wondered if guilt had driven him mad, or if the weight of truth was finally too heavy to hide. The storm around his statements didn't calm down. Radio hosts debated whether his revelations were a confession or a desperate attempt to rewrite his image. Some said it was both. "Maybe the truth lies somewhere between his pain and his pride," one commentator said during a late-night segment. "He might be lying about some things, but feelings don't lie. That man's haunted." And that haunting tone spread everywhere, into interviews, podcasts, even music. Younger artists started sampling his leaked audio in tracks, turning his trembling voice into eerie refrains. One song called "Ghosts of Vegas" hit 1 million streams overnight, featuring a slowed-down line from Suge saying, "They wanted me dead, not him." No matter how many times people tried to dismiss the claims, the story refused to die. Even those who didn't believe Suge couldn't stop talking about him. It was like Tupac's legacy had risen again through the words of the one man everyone had tried to forget. And deep inside those prison walls, as night fell over the concrete yard, Suge Knight sat alone in the dim glow of a flickering light, staring at the ceiling, whispering the same words he had said on that first tape. Words that echoed through hip-hop's past and future alike. "They framed me. They blamed me. But I know the truth. And so does God." The morning after the alleged attack inside the prison, confusion spread faster than any official statement. Reporters camped outside the gates. Camera crews circled like vultures, and every gossip outlet screamed a different headline. Some said Suge Knight was dead. Others said he was in critical condition. A few insisted he was alive but transferred to another facility for his own safety. No one really knew what was true, and that uncertainty only made the story bigger. By noon, the internet was in full meltdown. Hip-hop pages flooded with theories, fans demanding answers, old collaborators posting cryptic messages. One of Tupac's former backup dancers wrote on her feed, "Karma always finds its way." Another rapper, who had once been signed under death row, posted a black square with the caption, "Truth doesn't die easy." Those two posts alone sent millions of people spiraling into speculation. What happened next added another twist no one saw coming. A short voice note surfaced online, allegedly from a prison staffer describing the moments after Suge was found. The voice said he was discovered face down in his cell, unconscious but breathing, with handwritten pages scattered around him. Letters addressed to the people, and one specifically to Afeni's boy. That phrase alone, Afeni's boy, lit up every forum. Could he have meant Tupac? Was it a metaphor, or a confession written in code? Officials refused to confirm the existence of any letter, but that didn't stop fans from filling in the blanks. Within hours, screenshots of supposed excerpts began circulating. One read, "The truth don't sleep even when I do." Another, They paid for blood, but got legacy instead. Whether those words were real or not didn't matter. People believed them because they sounded like Suge, defiant, poetic, and full of regret. While chaos brewed online, new interviews started popping up with people from Suge's past. One of them was Keisha Cole's old producer, who claimed to have spoken with Suge just a week before. He said Suge warned him that the streets were coming for him again, and that the same hands that touched Pac were still working. That single line spread like wildfire. Meanwhile, in Los Angeles, a group of activists gathered outside an old death row office, holding signs that read, "Justice for Pac" and "Free Suge's Truth." Reporters asked what they wanted. One woman in a red hoodie said, "We just want transparency. If Suge's telling the truth, it changes everything we thought about that night." Another man interrupted her, saying, "Or maybe he's finally losing his mind. Either way, he deserves to be heard." That's what made this story different. It wasn't just about hip-hop anymore. It had become a conversation about legacy, loyalty, and the price of silence. Entire podcasts were dedicated to dissecting Suge's supposed last words, debating whether they revealed guilt, grief, or both. One host said, "It's like he's been carrying the weight of Pac's ghost for 30 years and finally dropped it." In the middle of this frenzy, something even stranger happened. A news outlet claimed they obtained a second recording of Suge, supposedly made the same week as his last interview. In this clip, Suge's voice was weaker but steady. He talked about contracts signed in blood, about brothers turning into merchants, and a $1 million deal that cursed everyone involved. He didn't say names, but listeners didn't need him to. The reference to the rumored bounty was clear. He ended the message with, "They thought money could buy silence, but silence is the loudest scream when it breaks." That line became the new viral quote of the week. Artists began tweeting it. Influencers posted it over slow-motion videos of Vegas lights and Pac's photos. And for a moment, it felt like the 90s all over again. Mystery, paranoia, and the haunting echo of what really happened that night. But with every new leak came backlash. Lawyers connected to old death row associates began issuing denials. "These are baseless claims," one attorney said. "There's no evidence that any such contract existed, and Mr. Knight's mental state makes him an unreliable narrator." Still, fans didn't care about legalities. They cared about emotion. They saw Suge not as a villain anymore, but as a broken man trying to clear his conscience before fate caught up. In one viral clip, a well-known hip-hop historian summed it up perfectly. Truth doesn't always come wrapped in evidence. Sometimes it bleeds out through guilt. That quote alone hit millions of views. Then came a supposed bombshell from an unexpected source. A retired Vegas detective, who had worked the original Tupac case, appeared in a radio interview saying that Suge's new statements weren't entirely impossible. When pressed, he refused to elaborate but admitted that some internal information had aligned with parts of Suge's description. It wasn't confirmation, but it was enough to make headlines scream, "Former detective backs Suge's claim." The internet lost control again. Every outlet replayed old footage of that night on Flamingo Road, slowing it down, analyzing reflections in car mirrors, trying to find hidden clues like it was a movie. People claimed to see figures no one noticed before. Others said the lighting proved there were multiple shooters. Even tech creators joined in, using AI to enhance the 1996 footage, adding eerie commentary that blurred truth and storytelling completely. As days passed, another theory began taking shape, that the attack on Suge was meant to erase him before he could say more. "Too many coincidences," one journalist tweeted. "You can't silence a man 30 years after a murder unless he's finally telling something dangerous." Another replied, "Or unless he's lying so well it's threatening the wrong people." The hip-hop world was now fully divided. Veteran rappers who once avoided the topic began speaking out. One said in a podcast, "Everybody knew there was more to it, but nobody wanted to die asking questions." Others mocked Suge, calling him the master of manipulation. The tension online turned personal, fans arguing fiercely over comment sections. each defending their version of the truth. And then quietly, the alleged letter Suge wrote to a Fanny's boy appeared in full online. No one knew who posted it first. It was blurry, scribbled, uneven. But it read like a farewell. "Forgive me for what I couldn't stop," it said. "Forgive me for surviving." That single sentence broke the internet all over again. People said it was the confession he'd carried for 30 years. Others said it was the words of a man haunted by survivor's guilt. Mainstream media finally caught up, running roundtable discussions with psychologists, rappers, and journalists debating whether Suge's behavior fit that of a man ready to confess or one losing grip on reality. One psychologist on air said, "The human mind, after years of guilt, can turn memory into fiction so convincing, it feels like truth." Her words were calm, but the audience didn't want calm. They wanted drama, and the drama wasn't over yet. An anonymous caller phoned a popular talk show claiming to have worked as a bodyguard for a record executive involved in Vegas back then. The voice disguised, the message chilling. "He wasn't lying about the money," the caller said. "It was all set up, but they messed up the plan. They hit the wrong one first." The host froze mid-sentence, unsure whether to believe or cut to commercial. Within minutes, the clip was everywhere. The public didn't need verification anymore. They had a new mystery to feed on. Suge Knight's story had gone from a single prison interview to a wildfire of secrets, claims, and emotional chaos. And through it all, one thing stayed constant. That name echoing through every headline, every timeline, every whisper: Tupac. As the world kept searching for truth, Suge's hospital status remained unknown. Officials refused to update anyone. And somewhere, fans were already saying what everyone else was too afraid to admit: that no matter how many decades pass, the night Tupac died would never stop demanding answers. Days passed, and the noise refused to fade. The headlines had turned into a storm of half-truths, theories, and emotional chaos. Every hour, new sources popped up, claiming inside information about Suge Knight's condition. Some said he was recovering under watch. Others swore he hadn't made it. One blog even claimed the authorities were hiding the truth to avoid a riot. It was impossible to separate fact from fiction anymore, but that didn't matter. The world was hooked. Outside the prison, candlelight vigils started forming. Fans played Tupac's songs on portable speakers, shouting lyrics into the night like they were prayers. Reporters called it the resurrection of the old wounds. One woman on camera said, "It's like Vegas all over again, except this time, it's truth that's bleeding." Meanwhile, more of Suge's alleged writings surfaced. One contained a chilling passage. "They told me to keep quiet or die, so I kept quiet and died a little every day." Another read, "The ones who made the call wear suits, not colors. They sit at tables, not corners." Those sentences became the heartbeat of every headline. People began calling him a prophet of pain, a man whose sins were catching up to him through words. The public split into two tribes. One side saw him as a broken giant trying to make peace before death. The other saw a manipulator crafting his last illusion. Radio shows grew heated. Callers argued, screamed, cried. One man said, "Suge might be guilty, but that doesn't mean he's lying." Another snapped back, "The man's been violent his whole life. Now suddenly he's a saint?" Even the hosts couldn't keep their cool. Then came the footage. A 30-second clip recorded secretly by another inmate leaked onto social media. It showed a stretcher being rushed down a dim hallway, guards shouting, "Move! Move!" The man on it was blurred, but the size, the frame, it looked unmistakably like Suge. His hand dangled off the side, fingers twitching, gripping something small and crumpled. When someone paused the video and zoomed in, they swore it was another piece of paper. Within hours, it had 10 million views and a single caption repeated everywhere. He didn't go quiet. The prison released a short statement denying foul play and urging the public not to spread false narratives. But nobody listened. Fans demanded transparency. Journalists demanded proof, and inside the noise, one thing became painfully clear. Suge Knight had, intentionally or not, become a martyr of his own story. Former artists from death row began speaking out again. One said he once saw Suge crying alone in his office after Tupac's funeral. He wasn't built to handle loss, the artist said. He pretended to be tough, but Pac's death broke something in him. Another admitted that many people around the label had known about strange meetings and outside money, but were too scared to ask questions. "We were all kids chasing fame," he confessed, "and we didn't realize how dirty the game was.